Marcus Chun wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive alien warship burning in the vacuum of space. 3 months ago, he had been a simple maintenance engineer on mining station Theta 7. Now he was being hailed as the hero who had saved the entire Rigel system from complete annihilation. The comm system crackled to life. "Marcus, this is Admiral Voss. Outstanding work out there. Return to base immediately for debriefing and your reward ceremony." Reward ceremony. Marcus almost laughed. All he wanted was to go home. Maybe get a pet to keep him company in his small quarters. Something simple, like a cat or maybe one of those furry creatures from Centauri Prime that everyone seemed to love. After 3 months of constant battle and narrow escapes, the idea of having something warm and friendly waiting for him seemed like paradise. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Marcus tried to process everything that had happened. It all started when the Zephyrian Empire launched their surprise attack on the outer colonies. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humanity possessed. Their ships could phase through solid matter, their weapons could tear apart molecular bonds, and their shields seemed impenetrable. The first wave had destroyed 12 human colonies in a matter of hours. Earth's combined fleet had been reduced to scattered remnants within days. It looked like humanity was facing complete extinction. That's when Marcus had made his discovery. He had been working on a damaged mining laser when the Zephyrians attacked Theta 7. While hiding in the maintenance tunnels, he noticed something strange. The alien ship's phasing technology created a specific electromagnetic signature. More importantly, that signature had a weakness. There was a brief moment during the phase transition when the ships became vulnerable to certain frequencies. Marcus had jury-rigged the mining station's industrial equipment to broadcast those frequencies. The result had been spectacular. 3 Zephyrian destroyers had materialized inside solid asteroids, tearing themselves apart instantly. Word of this discovery spread quickly through what remained of the human fleet. But Marcus hadn't stopped there. While the military scientists worked on weaponizing his discovery, he continued studying captured Zephyrian technology. He found weaknesses in their energy shields, discovered how to jam their communication systems, and even figured out how to hack their automated defense networks. The final battle had taken place in the Rigel system. The Zephyrian Empire had committed their entire fleet to one massive assault, intending to break humanity's spirit completely. Instead, they had walked into a trap designed by a maintenance engineer who thought outside the box. Marcus had coordinated the entire defense strategy from a modified cargo ship. Using his knowledge of Zephyrian weaknesses, he had turned their own technology against them. Phase ships found themselves materialized inside human vessels that had been evacuated and filled with explosives. Energy shields fluctuated wildly, leaving the ships exposed to concentrated fire. Communication networks crashed, leaving the alien fleet in complete chaos. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the mighty Zephyrian Empire had lost 90% of their military force. The survivors had retreated to their home system and immediately sent peace negotiators to Earth. Now Marcus was returning home as humanity's greatest hero. The media called him the miracle engineer and the savior of humanity. Military analysts were already studying his tactics and incorporating them into standard doctrine. Politicians were lining up to shake his hand and offer him positions in the government. All Marcus wanted was a pet. Earth looked exactly the same as when he had left it, but everything felt different. The orbital stations were bustling with activity as humanity rebuilt its defenses using captured Zephyrian technology. The planet below glowed with the lights of cities that had been darkened during the war, now bright again with hope and celebration. Marcus's ship docked at Luna Station, where a full military honor guard was waiting for him. Admiral Voss himself was there, along with representatives from the Earth government and what looked like half the media in the solar system. "Marcus Chun," Admiral Voss announced as he stepped off the ship, "by order of the Earth government, and with the gratitude of all humanity, you are hereby promoted to the rank of Admiral and awarded the Soul Cross, the highest military honor in human space." The crowd erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed from every direction. Marcus smiled and waved, but inside he felt overwhelmed. He had never asked for fame or recognition. He had just done what needed to be done. The ceremony continued for what felt like hours. Speeches were given, medals were presented, and promises of financial rewards and government positions were made. Marcus answered questions from reporters and posed for countless photographs. Through it all, he kept thinking about his small apartment back on Earth and how nice it would be to have a quiet companion waiting for him. Finally, Admiral Voss pulled him aside. "There's one more thing, Marcus. The Zephyrian peace delegation specifically requested to meet with you. They have something they want to present as part of the surrender terms." Marcus nodded tiredly. "More ceremonies?" "Not exactly. They mentioned something about a traditional gift. A sign of respect for a worthy opponent. They're waiting in Conference Room 7. The walk through Luna Station took them past viewing ports that showed Earth in all its blue and green glory. Marcus had grown up on that planet, in a small town where the biggest excitement was the annual Harvest Festival. He wondered if he would ever be able to go back to that simple life. Conference Room 7 was larger than Marcus had expected, with a long table surrounded by chairs designed for various alien physiologies. At the far end sat three figures that Marcus recognized as Zephyrian nobles, their tall, elegant forms draped in flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. The center figure rose as Marcus entered. This was High Commander Thalmar, the military leader who had personally surrendered the Zephyrian fleet. Marcus had studied recordings of him during the war, noting his tactical preferences and decision-making patterns. In person, the alien was even more imposing than his files had suggested. "Marcus Chun of humanity." Thalmar spoke, his words translated by the Universal Communication System. "You have fought with honor and wisdom. You defeated us not through brutality or luck, but through understanding and intelligence. This is worthy of respect." Marcus nodded diplomatically. "Your forces fought bravely, Commander. I regret the loss of life on both sides. As do we. Which brings us to why we requested this meeting." Thalmar gestured to one of his companions, who produced a small crystalline device. "According to Zephyrian tradition, when we are defeated by a worthy opponent, we offer a gift of great value, something that represents our highest regard for the victor's abilities." The device projected a hologram into the center of the room. Marcus leaned forward, expecting to see some advanced technology or perhaps a rare mineral. Instead, the image showed what appeared to be a young female humanoid with pale blue skin, silver hair, and distinctly alien features. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, but Marcus was confused about why the Zephyrians were showing him this. "This is Zara Lynn," Thalmar continued. "She is the daughter of High Noble Vextar, one of our most prominent families. She is also one of our most gifted scientists and engineers. We offer her to you as a companion, a living symbol of the peace between our peoples." Marcus's eyes widened. What exactly are you suggesting, Commander?" "Among our people, it is the highest honor to serve a proven warrior. Zara Lynn has volunteered for this role. She would serve as your personal aide, advisor, and companion. Her knowledge of Zephyrian technology and culture would be invaluable to humanity, and her presence would demonstrate our commitment to lasting peace." Admiral Voss looked as surprised as Marcus felt. "This is certainly unexpected. We would need to discuss the political implications with our government." Thalmar's expression remained impassive. "We understand your caution. However, this offer comes directly from the Imperial Council. Refusing would be seen as a rejection of our peace overture. Zara Lynn has already agreed to this arrangement and is prepared to dedicate her life to serving Marcus Chun." Marcus felt a strange mix of emotions. He had asked for a pet, something simple and comforting. Instead, he was being offered a sentient being from an alien civilization as a companion. The ethical implications alone made his head spin. "Where is she now?" Marcus asked. "Awaiting transport aboard our diplomatic vessel. If you agree to accept this gift, she will be delivered to your residence on Earth within the solar day. She brings with her only personal effects and her considerable knowledge. She requires no special accommodation beyond basic sustenance and shelter." Admiral Voss stepped closer to Marcus. "This could be incredibly valuable from an intelligence standpoint. Having direct access to someone who understands Zephyrian society and technology. But the decision is yours, Marcus. You've earned the right to choose." Marcus looked back at the hologram of Zara Lynn. There was something in her expression, even in the static image that suggested intelligence and dignity. She didn't look like a prisoner or a sacrifice. If anything, she appeared determined, perhaps even eager. Can I speak with her before making a decision? Thalmar touched a control on the crystalline device. The hologram flickered and became three-dimensional. Suddenly, Zara Lynn was standing in the room with them, her image transmitted from the Zephyrian ship in real time. She was even more striking in motion. Her silver hair moved like liquid mercury, and her pale blue eyes held an intensity that reminded Marcus of the best engineers he had worked with. When she spoke, her voice was melodic but carried an undertone of strength. Marcus Chun, hero of humanity, I greet you with respect. She performed what appeared to be a formal bow. I have studied your tactical innovations and technological discoveries. Your mind works in ways that intrigue me greatly. I would consider it an honor to learn from you and assist in your future endeavors. This isn't slavery, is it? Marcus asked directly. You're choosing this freely? Zara Lynn's expression became more animated. Among my people, serving a worthy individual is the highest calling. You have demonstrated abilities that surpass many of our greatest military minds. To work alongside you, to learn your methods, to help bridge the gap between our civilizations, this is not a burden, but an opportunity one have requested. And if I decide later that this arrangement isn't working, then I would request transport to the nearest human scientific facility where I could continue to serve your species in whatever capacity would be most helpful. My commitment is not to you personally, but to earning my people's redemption through useful service. Marcus found himself impressed by her straightforward manner. She wasn't trying to flatter him or present herself as helpless. She was offering her skills and knowledge in exchange for the chance to make a meaningful contribution. Admiral Voss whispered in his ear, Marcus, think about what you could accomplish with someone who understands their technology from the inside. The benefits to humanity could be enormous. That decided it. Marcus had spent his entire career trying to solve problems and help people. If accepting this unusual arrangement could benefit not just himself, but all of humanity, then he had a responsibility to consider it seriously. All right, Marcus said finally. I accept your offer, Commander Thalmar. But I want to be clear about something. Zara Lynn won't be a servant or a prize. If we're going to work together, it will be as equals. Partners. Zara Lynn's eyes widened slightly, and Marcus caught what might have been surprise in her expression. Thalmar nodded approvingly. You continue to demonstrate the wisdom that made you such a formidable opponent. We had hoped you would see the true value of this arrangement. The rest of the meeting involved logistics and formal protocols. Documents were signed, transportation was arranged, and cultural briefings were scheduled. Through it all, Marcus kept stealing glances at Zara Lynn's holographic image. She was clearly intelligent and capable, but there was something else there too. A loneliness, perhaps, or a deep need to prove herself. As the meeting concluded and the Zephyrian representatives prepared to leave, Zara Lynn spoke once more. Marcus Chun, I will see you on Earth. I look forward to our collaboration. The hologram flickered and disappeared. Marcus stood in the suddenly quiet conference room, trying to process what had just happened. He had come to this meeting thinking about maybe getting a cat. Instead, he was about to become responsible for an alien scientist who would be depending on him for her place in human society. Admiral Voss clapped him on the shoulder. You know, Marcus, I think this might be the beginning of something extraordinary. Marcus nodded slowly. I just hope I'm ready for it. As they left the conference room, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken another completely unexpected turn. The war was over, but his adventures were apparently just beginning. The journey back to Earth gave him time to think about what was coming. His apartment would need modifications to accommodate an alien guest. He would need to learn about Zephyrian culture and customs. Most importantly, he would need to figure out how to work with someone from a completely different species and background. One thing was certain, it was going to be a lot more complicated than having a pet. Marcus stood in his apartment, nervously checking everything for the third time in an hour. The small two-bedroom unit in New Geneva had seemed perfectly adequate for a single engineer, but now it felt cramped and inadequate. He had spent the past day trying to make one of the bedrooms suitable for an alien guest, though he had no idea what that actually meant. The Earth government had provided him with a basic primer on Zephyrian physiology and culture, but it was frustratingly vague. Zephyrians were humanoid, but required slightly different atmospheric conditions. They could breathe Earth's atmosphere without assistance, but preferred lower humidity. They needed about 6 hours of sleep per day, but in 2 separate periods rather than one long rest. Their diet was primarily vegetarian with some synthetic proteins. The doorbell chimed, interrupting his anxious preparations. Marcus opened it to find a delivery team from the diplomatic corps, along with a tall figure in a hooded cloak. The figure stepped forward and lowered the hood, revealing Zara Lynn's distinctive features. In person, she was even more striking than her hologram had suggested. Her pale blue skin had an almost luminescent quality, and her silver hair caught the light like spun metal. She wore simple dark clothing that looked both elegant and practical. A single small bag was slung over her shoulder. "Marcus Chun," she said formally, "I am honored to meet you in person." The diplomatic aide stepped forward. "Admiral Chun, this is Zara Lynn, as arranged. She has been fully briefed on human customs and has received medical clearance to remain on Earth. Here are her identification documents and residence permits." Marcus accepted the paperwork, but kept his eyes on Zara Lynn. She seemed nervous, though she was trying to hide it. "Please, come in. And just call me Marcus. I'm still getting used to the Admiral thing." As Zara Lynn entered his apartment, Marcus noticed how she moved with fluid grace, like a dancer or martial artist. Her eyes took in every detail of the space, and he could almost see her cataloging and analyzing everything she saw. "Your dwelling is compact, but efficiently organized," she observed. "The geometric patterns in your furniture arrangement suggest a systematic mind." Marcus laughed. "That's a polite way of saying it's small, and I'm a neat freak." Zara Lynn tilted her head slightly. "Neat freak? I am not familiar with this expression. It means I like things organized and tidy." "Sorry, I should have realized idioms might not translate well. I'll try to speak more clearly." "I appreciate that. I have studied your language extensively, but colloquialisms and cultural references remain challenging." Marcus led her to the kitchen area and offered her a seat at the small table. "Can I get you anything? Water? Food? I wasn't sure what you might need." "Water would be pleasant, thank you." Zara Lynn sat carefully, maintaining perfect posture. "I must confess, I am somewhat uncertain about the proper protocols for this situation. Serving an honored individual is traditional among my people, but the specifics of human customs are still unclear to me." Marcus handed her a glass of water and sat across from her. "Honestly, I'm just as confused as you are. I've never had a companion, assistant. I'm not even sure what to call this arrangement." "Perhaps we should define it ourselves," Zara Lynn suggested. "What would you find most helpful? I have expertise in advanced engineering, xenobiology, energy systems, and strategic analysis. I also have basic training in personal protection and household management." "Personal protection?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "As the individual responsible for humanity's victory over our forces, you may face threats from Zephyrian extremists who oppose the peace treaty. I am trained to recognize and counter such threats." She paused. "I am also an excellent cook, if that would be more immediately useful." Marcus couldn't help but smile. "You're full of surprises, aren't you?" For the first time, Zara Lynn's formal composure cracked slightly, and Marcus caught a glimpse of what might have been humor in her expression. "My education was comprehensive. The noble families of Zephyria are trained in many disciplines." "Right, your nobility. Should I be bowing or using special titles or something?" "My previous status is irrelevant now. I am here to serve humanity through serving you. Whatever protocols you find comfortable will be appropriate." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her face. "Okay, let me be direct. I don't want a servant, and I'm not comfortable with the idea of anyone dedicating their life to serving me. If we're going to make this work, I need you to be honest with me. What do you actually want from this arrangement?" Zara Lynn was quiet for a long moment, her pale eyes focused on the glass of water in her hands. When she finally looked up, Marcus saw something vulnerable in her expression. "My people measure worth through contribution and achievement. When you defeated our empire, you didn't just win a military victory. You demonstrated that human ingenuity could surpass our most advanced technology. That fascinated me. She set down the glass and leaned forward slightly. I spent my entire life being told that Zephyrian civilization was the pinnacle of development in this galaxy. We were taught that other species were inferior, primitive, worthy only of conquest or servitude. Then, a maintenance engineer from a minor colony found weaknesses in our systems that our greatest minds had never even considered. So this is about learning? Marcus asked. Partly, but also about redemption. My family's forces were involved in the destruction of 3 human colonies. Thousands died because of decisions made by people whose genetic material I share. I cannot bring back the dead, but perhaps I can help ensure that such tragedies never happen again. Marcus felt a wave of respect for her honesty. That's a heavy burden to carry. It is the burden I choose. The alternative is to live as a meaningless ornament in a defeated empire, contributing nothing to anyone. All right then. Here's what I propose. Marcus stood up and extended his hand. Partners, we work together on whatever projects come up. You teach me about Zephyrian technology and culture. I'll show you how humans approach problems. Equal partners, not master and servant. Zara Lynn stared at his extended hand for a moment before taking it. Her skin was cooler than human normal, but not unpleasantly so. Partners, she agreed. Though I should warn you, I have no experience with equal partnerships. My society is quite hierarchical. Then, we'll both be learning something new. Marcus showed her to the room he had prepared, apologizing for its simplicity. Zara Lynn seemed genuinely pleased with the space, commenting that it was larger and more comfortable than her quarters aboard the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel. The atmospheric controls are here, Marcus explained, pointing to a panel he had installed on the wall. You can adjust temperature, humidity, and air circulation to whatever you find comfortable. The bathroom is across the hall. I stocked it with basic supplies, but let me know if you need anything else. This is more than adequate. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. As Zara Lynn unpacked her few belongings, Marcus couldn't help but notice how little she had brought with her. A few changes of clothing, some personal items that looked like they might be tools or instruments, and what appeared to be a collection of data crystals. Is that everything you own? Marcus asked. Everything I was permitted to bring. Personal possessions beyond basic necessities were deemed inappropriate for one entering voluntary service. Marcus felt a flash of anger at the casual way her people had stripped away her life, but he kept it to himself. Well, we'll have to get you some new things. Clothes, personal items, whatever you need to feel at home here. That is very generous, but unnecessary. I require very little. Maybe, but wanting things isn't about necessity. It's about being human. Well, you know what I mean. That evening, Marcus attempted to cook dinner for both of them, using the nutritional information he had been given about Zephyrian dietary needs. The result was a somewhat awkward fusion of human and alien cuisine that tasted better than it looked. Over dinner, they began the delicate process of getting to know each other. Zara Lynn told him about her education in the Zephyrian Imperial Academy, where she had studied theoretical engineering and strategic sciences. Marcus shared stories about his childhood on Earth and his work in the outer colonies. I must ask, Zara Lynn said as they finished eating, what did you expect when you agreed to accept me as a gift? Marcus nearly choked on his water. Honestly, I was hoping for a pet. Maybe a cat or something simple and low maintenance. Zara Lynn's expression went through several rapid changes before settling on what Marcus was beginning to recognize as her attempt to suppress laughter. A pet. Yeah, I know how that sounds now. I'm not exactly the most socially sophisticated person. I spend most of my time working with machines and technical problems. Interpersonal relationships are not my strong suit. You navigated the politics of an interspecies peace negotiation quite effectively. That was different. That was about solving a problem. This, Marcus gestured between them. This is about actually living and working with another person. I have no idea what I'm doing. Then, we are equally inexperienced. I have never lived outside the rigid structure of Zephyrian society. I have never had a friend who was not selected for me by family or political considerations. I have never made a decision that wasn't ultimately approved by someone of higher rank. Marcus looked at her across the small table, this brilliant alien woman who had given up everything she knew to work with him, and felt a sudden surge of determination. Well, then, we'll figure it out together. The next morning, Marcus woke to find Zara Lynn already awake and sitting at his computer terminal. She looked up as he entered the living area, her expression excited. "I hope you don't mind. I was reviewing the technical specifications for your modifications to our technology during the war. Your approach to quantum phase manipulation is absolutely revolutionary." Marcus poured himself coffee and looked over her shoulder at the screen. Revolutionary might be a strong word. I just noticed patterns and found ways to exploit them. But that's precisely what makes it revolutionary. Our engineers approach problems through established protocols and theoretical frameworks. You ignored all of that and focused on practical results. Look at this. She pointed to a diagram on the screen. Your frequency modulation technique shouldn't work according to Zephyrian physics models, but obviously it does. Maybe your physics models are incomplete. Zara Lynn turned to stare at him. Do you realize what you just said? Zephyrian scientific theory has been refined over thousands of years. It is considered perfect and complete. Nothing is perfect and complete. There's always more to learn, new ways to look at problems. Marcus sat down next to her. Show me how your phase technology is supposed to work. For the next hour, Zara Lynn walked Marcus through the theoretical foundation of Zephyrian technology. Her understanding was impressive, but Marcus could see the limitations built into her thinking. She had been taught to work within established parameters, never to question fundamental assumptions. What if the quantum field isn't actually stable during phase transition? Marcus asked. What if there are micro-fluctuations that your instruments can't detect? That would be impossible. Our sensors are perfectly calibrated, according to the theory that says the field should be stable. But what if the theory is wrong? Marcus could almost see the gears turning in Zara Lynn's mind as she considered this possibility. Her entire scientific education had been built on the assumption that Zephyrian knowledge was superior and complete. The idea that human insights could reveal flaws in that knowledge was clearly revolutionary for her. We would need to run experiments, she said slowly. Test the assumptions rather than simply accepting them. Now you're thinking like a human engineer. Zara Lynn spent the rest of the day reviewing human scientific literature, comparing human and Zephyrian approaches to similar problems. Marcus worked on his own projects, but kept an eye on her, watching as she wrestled with entirely new ways of thinking about the universe. By evening, she seemed both excited and exhausted. Your species approaches knowledge so differently than mine. You question everything, test every assumption, constantly look for new possibilities. It's liberating, but also overwhelming. It takes getting used to. The important thing is not to be afraid of being wrong. Being wrong just means you learn something new. Among my people, being wrong is a sign of inadequacy. It brings shame to oneself and one's family. Well, you're not among your people anymore. Here, making mistakes is how we learn and grow. That night, as Marcus prepared for bed, he reflected on the day. Having Zara Lynn around was definitely going to be interesting. She was brilliant, but her intelligence had been shaped by a completely different culture and set of assumptions. Helping her adapt to human ways of thinking would be a challenge, but also an opportunity to see his own methods from a new perspective. More importantly, he was beginning to see that this arrangement might benefit both of them. Zara Lynn needed to find a new purpose and identity outside her rigid society. Marcus needed someone who could help him understand the broader implications of the technological discoveries he had made during the war. Maybe this partnership would work out better than either of them had expected. It certainly wouldn't be boring. 2 weeks into their partnership, Marcus was beginning to understand why the Zephyrians considered Zara Lynn one of their most gifted scientists. Her mind worked with a precision and speed that impressed even him. What fascinated him more was watching her adapt to human methods of problem-solving. They had converted his spare bedroom into a makeshift laboratory, filling it with equipment borrowed from the Earth Research Institute. Their current project involved analyzing captured Zephyrian technology to understand how it could be integrated with human systems. The power coupling is unstable again, Zara Lynn announced, looking up from a complex assembly of alien and human components. According to my calculations, it should be functioning perfectly. Marcus set down his own work and came over to examine the device. What happens if you ignore your calculations and just observe what's actually happening? Ignore my calculations? Zara Lynn looked scandalized. But The mathematics clearly shows. The mathematics shows what should happen in a perfect theoretical environment. We're not in a perfect theoretical environment. We're in my apartment with jury-rigged equipment and components that were never designed to work together. Marcus picked up a diagnostic tool and began scanning the coupling. Look at this. Your power crystal is resonating at exactly the frequency your math predicts. But the human power matrix is introducing harmonic distortions that your calculations don't account for. Zara Lynn studied the readings, her expression shifting from confusion to comprehension. The harmonic distortions create interference patterns that destabilize the quantum field. Exactly. So how do we fix it? We could recalibrate the crystal to compensate for the distortions. Or, Zara Lynn frowned, clearly struggling with alternative approaches. Marcus waited patiently. Over the past weeks, he had learned that pushing her too hard would make her retreat into familiar patterns of thinking. Or we could modify the human components to reduce the distortions, she said tentatively. Better. What else? We could redesign the entire coupling to work with the distortions rather than against them? Marcus smiled. Now you're thinking creatively. Show me what that might look like. For the next hour, they worked together to completely reimagine the power coupling design. Instead of fighting the interference patterns, they designed a system that used them as part of the energy transfer process. The result was actually more efficient than either the pure Zephyrian or pure human approaches. This is remarkable, Zara Lynn said as they tested the new design. The efficiency is nearly 20% higher than our original projections. That's what happens when you let reality guide your theory instead of the other way around. Zara Lynn was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Is this how humans develop their technology? Through constant experimentation and adaptation?" Pretty much. We're not the smartest species in the galaxy, but we're stubborn and we don't give up easily. When something doesn't work the way we expect, we try something else. My people would consider that approach primitive. Marcus shrugged. Maybe primitive methods work better than sophisticated ones sometimes. After all, my primitive approach defeated your sophisticated military. That afternoon, they received an unexpected visitor. Admiral Voss arrived with Dr. Sarah Chun, the head of the Earth Technology Integration Project. Marcus, Zara Lynn, Admiral Voss greeted them. "I hope you don't mind the intrusion. Dr. Chun wanted to see the work you've been doing here." Dr. Chun stepped forward, her eyes immediately drawn to the hybrid technology scattered around the apartment. "Admiral Voss tells me you've made some interesting breakthroughs. Mind if I take a look?" Marcus and Zara Lynn spent the next 2 hours demonstrating their various projects. Dr. Chun asked detailed technical questions and took extensive notes. She seemed particularly impressed by their power coupling design. "This is exactly the kind of innovation we need," Dr. Chun said finally. "We have teams of scientists working on integration problems, but they're all approaching it from purely theoretical standpoints. Your practical, experimental method is yielding much better results. That's actually why we're here," Admiral Voss added. "We'd like to offer you both positions with the integration project. Full laboratory facilities, unlimited resources, and your own research team." Marcus looked at Zara Lynn, who seemed stunned by the offer. "What would we be working on?" "Everything," Dr. Chin replied enthusiastically. "Energy systems, propulsion technology, communication networks, defensive systems. The Zephyrian surrender gave us access to technology that's centuries ahead of our own. But we need people who can actually make it work with our existing systems." "And there would be other Zephyrians involved?" Zara Lynn asked carefully. "Several have volunteered to assist with the project, yes. You'd be working with scientists from both species." Marcus could see the conflict in Zara Lynn's expression. The offer was an incredible opportunity, but he suspected she was worried about how other Zephyrians might react to her current status. "Can we think about it?" Marcus asked. "Of course. Take your time." Dr. Chun handed them each a data tablet. These contain detailed information about the project and the positions we're offering. I think you'll find them quite generous. After the visitors left, Marcus and Zara Lynn sat in their lab, reviewing the information. The positions came with impressive salaries, housing allowances, and research budgets that dwarfed anything Marcus had ever had access to. "This is an extraordinary opportunity," Zara Lynn said quietly. "But you're worried about something." Zara Lynn set down the tablet and turned to face him. "The other Zephyrians on the project, They will see me as a collaborator, someone who betrayed her own species for personal gain. Is that what you think you did? No. I believe I chose the path that serves the greater good. But my former peers may not see it that way. Marcus leaned back in his chair, considering the situation. What would make you feel better about it? I'm not sure. Perhaps if we could demonstrate that our collaboration produces results that benefit both species? If we could show that human and Zephyrian approaches can complement each other rather than compete. Then, let's do that. Marcus stood up and walked over to a wall covered with their research notes and diagrams. Look at what we've accomplished in just 2 weeks. Hybrid technology that outperforms either species working alone. New approaches to problems that neither of us would have discovered individually. He turned back to Zaralyn. If we take this position, we won't just be working for humanity or for the Zephyrians. We'll be working for the future of both species together. Zaralyn's expression gradually shifted from worried to determined. You're right. This is bigger than personal concerns or political consequences. They spent the next day preparing a proposal to present along with their acceptance of the positions. Marcus suggested that they request to lead a mixed-species research team, specifically focused on developing integrated technologies that required both human and Zephyrian expertise. We'll show them what real cooperation looks like, Marcus explained as they worked on their presentation. Not just humans using Zephyrian technology, or Zephyrians adapting to human methods, but genuine collaboration that creates something new. Zaralyn added technical specifications and theoretical frameworks to support their proposal. Her formal education proved invaluable in translating their experimental discoveries into language that would impress the scientific establishment. The presentation took place at the Earth Technology Institute 3 days later. Marcus and Zaralyn stood before a panel of human and Zephyrian scientists, explaining their work and their vision for the future of interspecies collaboration. The key insight, Marcus explained, is that different approaches to problem-solving aren't competing methodologies. They're complementary tools. Zephyrian theoretical precision provides the framework, while human experimental flexibility provides the innovation. Zaralyn stepped forward. For example, our power coupling design succeeds because it combines Zephyrian understanding of quantum field mechanics with human willingness to work with imperfect systems. Neither approach alone could have achieved these results. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. And you believe this model could be applied to larger projects? Absolutely, Zaralyn replied. We have already identified 17 areas where combined research teams could accelerate development by decades. The Zephyrian representative, High Scientist Moltar, spoke for the first time. This is a radical departure from traditional research methodologies. How do we know it will scale beyond small experimental projects? Marcus had expected this question. The same way we know anything works. We test it. Start small, prove the concept, then expand based on results rather than theory. And if the approach fails, then we learn from the failure and try something else. That's how progress works. Moltar's expression suggested he found this answer both fascinating and disturbing. Your species has a very unconventional relationship with failure. We don't see failure as the end of the process. We see it as part of the process. After an hour of detailed questions and discussions, the panel retired to deliberate. Marcus and Zaralyn waited nervously in a conference room, reviewing their presentation and wondering if they had made their case effectively. Do you think they'll approve our proposal? Zaralyn asked. I think they'd be crazy not to. But then, I've learned that intelligence and wisdom don't always go together. Dr. Chun returned 20 minutes later with a smile on her face. Congratulations. Your proposal has been approved unanimously. You'll be heading the new Integrated Technology Development Division, with a budget of 50 million credits and authorization to recruit a team of up to 30 researchers from both species. Marcus felt a surge of excitement mixed with apprehension. This was a chance to do work that could benefit both species for generations to come. It was also a huge responsibility. There's one condition, Dr. Chen continued. The project has attracted attention at the highest levels of both governments. You'll be expected to provide regular reports and demonstrations of your progress. The political implications of this work are significant. Zaralyn nodded seriously. We understand. This project represents more than just scientific advancement. It's a symbol of the new relationship between our peoples. Exactly. No pressure, Dr. Chun said with a wry smile. That evening, Marcus and Zaralyn celebrated their new positions with a dinner at one of New Geneva's finest restaurants. As they talked about their plans for the research division, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed. A few weeks ago, he had been a simple engineer looking forward to getting a pet for company. Now he was heading a major research project with an alien partner who had become one of the most interesting people he had ever met. Marcus, Zaralyn said as they finished their meal, I want to thank you. For what? For treating me as an equal partner rather than a gift or a trophy. For helping me discover new ways of thinking. For giving me the chance to contribute to something meaningful. Marcus raised his glass. Thank you for taking a chance on working with a primitive human who doesn't know what he's doing half the time. Zaralyn clinked her glass against his. I'm beginning to think that not knowing what you're doing is a valuable skill. It keeps you open to possibilities that experts would dismiss. As they left the restaurant, Marcus looked up at the stars visible through the dome of New Geneva. Somewhere out there was the Zephyrian home system, where an empire was learning to adapt to a new reality. Somewhere else were the human colonies, rebuilding and growing stronger. And here on Earth, two unlikely partners were about to embark on work that could shape the future of both civilizations. It wasn't the simple, quiet life Marcus had once imagined for himself, but it was definitely going to be interesting. The next morning, they began the process of moving into their new laboratory facility. The building was impressive, with state-of-the-art equipment and spacious work areas designed to accommodate researchers from multiple species. As they set up their new office, Zaralyn asked, Do you ever regret accepting the Zephyrian offer? Your life would be much simpler if you had refused. Marcus considered the question as he arranged his tools and reference materials. Simpler, yes, but probably not as meaningful. Besides, I'm starting to realize that simple isn't always better. Even though you wanted a pet instead of a partner? Marcus laughed. You know, I'm beginning to think I got something much better than what I asked for. 6 months into their leadership of the Integrated Technology Development Division, Marcus and Zaralyn faced their first major crisis. The mixed species research teams had produced remarkable results, but political tensions were threatening to tear the project apart. Marcus stood before the emergency session of the Earth Science Council, looking out at faces that ranged from supportive to openly hostile. Next to him, Zaralyn maintained her characteristic composure, but he could sense her tension. The incidents this week have raised serious concerns about the wisdom of this collaboration, declared Counselor Harrison, one of the most vocal critics of the integration project. 3 separate conflicts between human and Zephyrian researchers, work mysteriously disappearing from secure servers, and now accusations of espionage. Marcus stepped forward. Counselor, those incidents are exactly why this project is necessary. We're learning to work together despite our differences, not because we don't have any. And what about the missing research data? Demanded another council member. How do we know our technologies aren't being transmitted back to the Zephyrian Empire? Zaralyn spoke for the first time. May I address that concern directly? Without waiting for permission, she activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. This is a complete record of all data accessed by Zephyrian personnel over the past month. The display showed detailed logs of every interaction between Zephyrian researchers and human technology. As you can see, there have been no unauthorized transmissions, no data copied to external systems, and no attempts to access classified information. How do we know this data is accurate? Harrison challenged. Because it was compiled by human security systems that Zephyrian personnel have no access to, Marcus replied. The missing data wasn't stolen. It was archived by our own automated backup system after a power surge corrupted the active files. We recovered it yesterday. Dr. Chun, who had been silent until now, stood up. Council members, I've reviewed all the incidents personally. What we're seeing are growing pains, not evidence of systematic problems. These researchers are pioneers, learning to bridge gaps that have existed between our species for thousands of years. Growing pains that could compromise Earth's security, Harrison shot back. Marcus felt his patience reaching its limit. Counselor Harrison, 6 months ago these same Zephyrians were trying to conquer humanity. Now they're working 18-hour days to help us develop technology that benefits both species. If that's not evidence of successful diplomacy, I don't know what is. The debate continued for another hour, with council members questioning every aspect of the project. Finally, the council president called for a recess to allow the leadership to deliberate. In the corridor outside the chamber, Marcus and Zara Lynn regrouped with Dr. Chen. "How bad is this?" Marcus asked. "Bad enough. Harrison has been building support to shut down the project entirely. He has at least 6 votes, maybe 7. We need 12 to maintain funding and authorization." Zara Lynn looked troubled. "Perhaps I should withdraw from the project. My presence seems to be creating more problems than solutions." "Absolutely not," Marcus said firmly. "This isn't about you personally. It's about fear and politics. People are scared of change, even beneficial change." Dr. Chen nodded. "Marcus is right. But we need to give the council something concrete to vote for. Fear is powerful, but results are more powerful. What did you have in mind?" "The Quantum Communication Array Project. If you could demonstrate a working prototype." Marcus and Zara Lynn exchanged glances. The Quantum Communication Array was their most ambitious project, designed to enable instant communication across galactic distances. Success would revolutionize both human and Zephyrian civilizations. "The prototype won't be ready for testing for at least another month," Zara Lynn said. "Then, we accelerate the timeline," Marcus replied. "How long would we need if we focused every resource on it? Working around the clock with our entire team? 2 weeks, maybe less." Dr. Chen looked skeptical. "That's cutting it very close. If the prototype fails during the demonstration, then we deal with the consequences," Marcus said. "But if we don't try, the project gets shut down anyway." They spent the rest of the day rallying their research teams. The quantum communication array required precise integration of human and Zephyrian technologies, making it the perfect showcase for their collaborative approach. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their lead human physicist, expressed concern about the rushed timeline. "Marcus, this technology is incredibly complex. One miscalculation could create a quantum cascade that destroys the entire laboratory. What are the actual risks?" Marcus asked. Zara Lynn consulted her calculations. "If we follow standard Zephyrian safety protocols, the risk of cascade failure is approximately 0.03%. And if we use human safety margins, the risk increases to nearly 2%, but construction time decreases by 40%. Dr. Tanaka looked horrified. 2% chance of destroying the lab is unacceptable. Marcus thought about the political situation. What's the chance of the project being shut down if we don't demonstrate results? Approximately 85%, Dr. Chen replied grimly. Then, we take the engineering risk to avoid the political risk. But we do it smart. Marcus turned to the assembled team. We build in stages, test every component individually, and establish multiple fail-safes. If anything goes wrong, we shut down immediately. The next 2 weeks were the most intense of Marcus's career. The research teams worked in rotating shifts, with progress updates every 6 hours. Human and Zephyrian researchers who had been suspicious of each other found themselves depending on each other's expertise. Dr. Kethvar, a Zephyrian quantum theorist, worked closely with Dr. Tanaka to refine the mathematical models underlying the communication system. At first, their collaboration was tense and formal. By the end of the first week, they were finishing each other's equations and debating theoretical implications like old colleagues. It's fascinating how your mathematics and ours arrive at similar conclusions through completely different approaches, Dr. Kethvar observed during one late-night session. Dr. Tanaka nodded, exhaustion evident in her voice. Your people think in elegant curves and flowing equations. We think in jagged approximations and brute force calculations. But somehow they produce compatible results. Marcus found similar scenes throughout the laboratory. Zephyrian precision complemented human innovation, while human adaptability compensated for Zephyrian rigidity. The collaborative approach was working, even under extreme pressure. Zara Lynn barely slept during those 2 weeks, dividing her time between technical oversight and managing the complex interpersonal dynamics of the mixed teams. Marcus watched her navigate cultural differences and translate between human and Zephyrian ways of thinking with growing admiration. You're a natural diplomat, he told her during one brief break. I'm simply applying engineering principles to social problems, she replied. Identify the points of friction, design solutions, test, and refine. Most diplomats could learn from that approach. The morning of the demonstration, Marcus stood in the laboratory looking at their creation. The quantum communication array filled an entire room, a complex assembly of human and Zephyrian components that seemed to pulse with contained energy. Final systems check, announced Dr. Tanaka. All primary systems showing green. Quantum field generators stable. Safety protocols armed and ready. Zaralyn monitored the Zephyrian components. Crystalline matrix alignment optimal. Phase harmonics within acceptable parameters. Standing by for activation sequence. The observation gallery above the laboratory was packed with council members, government officials, and representatives from both human and Zephyrian leadership. Marcus could see Counselor Harrison in the front row, his expression skeptical. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored Zephyrian guests, Marcus began. What you're about to see represents 6 months of unprecedented cooperation between our species. The quantum communication array will enable instantaneous communication across unlimited distances, connecting colonies, fleets, and civilizations in ways never before possible. He nodded to Zaralyn, who initiated the startup sequence. The array hummed to life, its various components synchronizing with mathematical precision. Lights danced along crystalline pathways as quantum fields aligned and stabilized. Array is online, Dr. Tanaka reported. Quantum entanglement established with the test receiver on Luna Station. Initiating communication protocol, Zaralyn announced. Sending test message. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a chime sounded from the communication console, and a voice crackled through the speakers. Luna Station receiving. Signal is clear and strong. Message received instantaneously with no detectable delay. The observation gallery erupted in excited murmurs. Even Counselor Harrison looked impressed, though he tried to hide it. Marcus felt a surge of relief. But the demonstration wasn't over yet. Now for the real test. Dr. Chun, would you please establish contact with the Zephyrian diplomatic mission at Alpha Centauri? This was the moment that would determine the project's future. Alpha Centauri was over 4 light years away. Traditional communication would take 8 years for a round trip. If their array could establish real-time contact, it would prove that their technology represented a genuine breakthrough. Zaralyn's fingers flew over the control interface, adjusting quantum field parameters and fine-tuning the connection. Searching for compatible quantum signature, target acquired. Attempting to establish entanglement link. Marcus watched the readouts carefully. Everything depended on the precise integration of human and Zephyrian technologies. Too much variance in either direction would cause the connection to collapse. Link established, Dr. Tanaka announced. Signal strength optimal. A new voice came through the speakers, speaking in the musical tones of the Zephyrian language before switching to translated English. This is Ambassador Vextel at Alpha Centauri. We are receiving your transmission clearly. This is remarkable. The observation gallery fell silent. Marcus could see the significance of the moment reflected in every face. They had just demonstrated communication across interstellar distances with no delay, using technology that neither species could have developed alone. Ambassador Vextel, Marcus replied, you are witnessing the first successful test of integrated human-Zephyrian quantum communication technology. This array represents the collaborative efforts of scientists from both our species, working together to achieve what neither could accomplish separately. The implications are extraordinary, the ambassador responded. With this technology, our scattered populations could remain in constant contact. Emergency coordination, cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, the possibilities are limitless. Marcus looked up at the observation gallery. Council members, this is what cooperation looks like. This is what we can achieve when we work together instead of apart. Counselor Harrison stood up slowly. Admiral Chun, I must admit this demonstration has exceeded my expectations. However, I have concerns about the long-term security implications, which is why we built safeguards into the system, Zaralyn interjected. The quantum encryption protocols ensure that communications remain secure even if the technology is compromised. And The array can be deactivated instantly if necessary. Dr. Chin stepped forward. Council members, I believe we've seen enough to make an informed decision. This project has demonstrated its value beyond any reasonable doubt. The vote that followed was closer than Marcus had hoped, but decisive enough to secure the project's future. 9 votes in favor, 4 opposed, with 2 abstentions. The Integrated Technology Development Division would continue its work. After the demonstration, Marcus and Zara Lynn retreated to their office, exhausted but triumphant. The past 2 weeks had tested both their technical abilities and their partnership under extreme pressure. We did it, Marcus said, slumping into his chair. We actually pulled it off. Zara Lynn nodded, though she looked more thoughtful than celebratory. The technology worked perfectly, but I'm concerned about the political situation. Harrison and his allies won't give up easily. Let them keep trying. After today's demonstration, it's going to be much harder to argue that this project isn't worthwhile. Perhaps, but we should be prepared for other challenges. Success often breeds new forms of opposition. Marcus studied her expression. You're thinking about the Zephyrian side, aren't you? How will your people react to this? Mixed responses, I suspect. Some will see it as proof that cooperation is possible and beneficial. Others will view it as dangerous dependence on human technology and methods. And which group will win? Zara Lynn was quiet for a long moment. That may depend on how well we handle the successes that come next. Today proved that our approach works. Now we need to prove that it can work consistently, safely, and in ways that benefit both species equally. Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility that success had brought them. They had won this battle, but the larger war for the future of interspecies cooperation was far from over. That evening, they received a private communication from the Zephyrian Empire. High Commander Thalmar appeared on their secure channel, his expression unreadable. Zara Lynn, daughter of Vextar, and Marcus Chun, hero of humanity, he began formally. The Imperial Council has been informed of your successful demonstration. There are differing opinions about its significance. Commander, Zara Lynn replied carefully, we believe this technology represents an opportunity for both our civilizations to grow and prosper together. Indeed. However, there are those who view your collaboration with suspicion. They believe you may be sharing too much of our advanced knowledge with humanity. Marcus felt a flash of anger. With respect, Commander, the knowledge flows both ways. Human insights have improved Zephyrian technology just as much as Zephyrian knowledge has advanced human capabilities. That is precisely what concerns some of our people. The idea that humans could improve upon Zephyrian perfection is troubling to traditional mindsets. Zara Lynn leaned forward. Sir, if I may speak freely, perhaps the problem is with the concept of perfection itself. Our collaboration has taught me that there is always room for improvement, always new ways to approach problems. Thalmar's expression softened slightly. You speak with wisdom, young one. But wisdom is not always welcome in the halls of power. Be cautious. Your success has made you valuable, but also vulnerable. After the transmission ended, Marcus and Zara Lynn sat in thoughtful silence. It sounds like we've got enemies on both sides now, Marcus observed. Perhaps that means we're doing something right. If both extremes are unhappy with us, we might be finding the correct balance. Marcus smiled at her logic. Here's to making everyone equally uncomfortable. To successful collaboration, Zara Lynn corrected, raising an imaginary glass. Same thing, when you think about it. 1 year after their first meeting, Marcus and Zara Lynn stood together in the center of the largest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Representatives from 12 different species had come to Earth to witness the signing of the Galactic Cooperation Accord, a treaty that would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. The success of their quantum communication array had sparked a revolution in diplomatic and commercial relationships. Worlds that had been isolated by the vast distances of space were now connected in real time. Trade flourished, scientific knowledge was shared freely, and conflicts that had simmered for centuries were resolved through instant communication rather than warfare. I never imagined that asking for a pet would lead to this. Marcus murmured to Zara Lynn as they watched delegates from across the galaxy take their seats in the Great Assembly Hall. Zara Lynn smiled, a gesture that had become much more natural for her over the past months. Perhaps the universe has a sense of humor. You asked for a simple companion and received a partner who helped you change the course of galactic civilization. Their partnership had evolved far beyond its original parameters. What had begun as an awkward arrangement between former enemies had become a model for interspecies cooperation that was being studied and replicated throughout the galaxy. The Integrated Technology Development Division now employed over 3,000 researchers from 15 different species, all working together to solve the great challenges facing galactic civilization. But success had not come without its costs. Both Marcus and Zara Lynn had faced criticism, threats, and attempts to undermine their work. Human nationalists accused Marcus of giving away humanity's advantages to alien species. Zephyrian traditionalists branded Zara Lynn a traitor to her people's heritage. Other species questioned whether the human-Zephyrian partnership was genuine cooperation or simply a new form of cultural imperialism. Marcus, Zara Lynn, Dr. Chin approached them, flanked by Admiral Voss and a tall, elegant figure they recognized as High Scientist Moltar. The ceremony is about to begin. As the architects of the technology that made this possible, you'll be presenting the communication array to the assembled delegates. Marcus felt a familiar surge of nervousness. Public speaking had never been his strong suit, and addressing representatives from a dozen alien civilizations was well beyond his comfort zone. Zara Lynn, sensing his tension, placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We'll handle it together, as always." The assembly hall fell silent as the delegates took their positions. Marcus and Zara Lynn walked to the central platform, where a ceremonial version of their quantum communication array had been constructed. This one was smaller and more elegant than their original prototype, but it contained all the same revolutionary technology. "Honored representatives," Zara Lynn began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's advanced acoustics system. "1 year ago, our species were enemies. Today, we stand before you as partners in the greatest collaborative effort in galactic history." Marcus stepped forward. "The device before you represents more than advanced technology. It represents what becomes possible when different species share their knowledge, their perspectives, and their dreams for the future." He activated the array, and holographic displays showed its connections to similar devices throughout the galaxy. Points of light appeared, representing colonies, homeworlds, research stations, and diplomatic outposts, all connected by instantaneous communication links. "Distance no longer divides us," Marcus continued. "A scientist on the edge of the galaxy can collaborate in real time with colleagues at the galactic core. Diplomatic crises can be resolved through immediate communication rather than months of delayed messages. Families separated by interstellar distances can maintain daily contact." The demonstration that followed showcased the full potential of the network. Delegates spoke directly with their homeworlds, receiving real-time updates on local conditions and instructions from their governments. Scientific data was shared instantly between research stations light years apart. Cultural exchanges took place between species that had never been able to communicate effectively before. But the most powerful moment came when a young human girl, part of a colony at the very edge of explored space, spoke directly to her grandmother on Earth. Their conversation, carried across 50,000 light-years without any delay, brought tears to the eyes of delegates from species that didn't even possess tear ducts. "This is what cooperation can achieve," Zara Lynn said as the demonstration concluded. "Not just technological advancement, but genuine connection between all the inhabitants of our galaxy." The signing ceremony that followed was remarkably smooth for such a complex agreement. The Galactic Cooperation Accord established frameworks for shared research, mutual defense, cultural exchange, and economic cooperation. It created institutions that would govern interspecies relations for generations to come. Marcus watched as representative after representative signed the accord, each adding their species to the growing alliance. The Zephyrian delegation signed with obvious pride, their former empire now transformed into a founding member of a galactic community. The human delegation included not just government officials, but also colonists, scientists, and ordinary citizens who had volunteered to represent humanity's diversity. When the ceremony concluded, the assembly hall erupted in celebration. Delegates mingled freely, sharing refreshments compatible with their various biologies, and discussing the implications of what they had just witnessed. Marcus found himself cornered by a group of reporters from various species, all eager to understand how a maintenance engineer had become one of the most influential figures in galactic politics. Admiral Chun asked a journalist from the Aquatic Delphine Consortium, "How do you respond to critics who say that humans are using superior technology to dominate other species?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I think those critics fundamentally misunderstand what we've accomplished. The technology isn't superior because it's human or Zephyrian or anything else. It's superior because it combines insights from multiple species working together. No single species could have developed this alone." A crystalline representative posed the next question: "What advice would you give to species who are hesitant to join collaborative research efforts?" "Start small," Marcus replied. "Find one area where cooperation could be mutually beneficial. Prove that it works on a limited scale before attempting anything major. And remember that collaboration doesn't mean giving up your identity or independence. It means sharing your unique strengths with others while benefiting from theirs." Zara Lynn fielded questions about the Zephyrian perspective on the Alliance. "My people spent millennia believing that we were the pinnacle of galactic civilization," she explained to the assembled reporters. "Working with humans taught us that there is no pinnacle, only endless opportunities for growth and improvement." Later that evening, Marcus and Zara Lynn retreated to a quiet observation deck overlooking the lights of New Geneva. The city below sparkled with activity as beings from across the galaxy celebrated the new era of cooperation. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had refused the Zephyrian offer?" Zara Lynn asked, leaning against the railing beside him. Marcus laughed. "I probably would have gotten that cat I wanted, and spent my days maintaining mining equipment in peace and quiet." "Would you prefer that life?" Marcus considered the question seriously. The past year had been incredibly rewarding, but also exhausting and sometimes dangerous. He had faced challenges he never could have imagined and taken on responsibilities that sometimes kept him awake at night. "No," he said finally. "This is better. More complicated, more stressful, but definitely better. Even though you're now responsible for technologies that could reshape galactic civilization, especially because of that. A year ago, I was just one engineer working alone. Now I'm part of something bigger than myself, something that's making a real difference in the galaxy." Zara Lynn nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. When I first volunteered for this assignment, I saw it as a way to atone for my people's actions during the war. Now I see it as the most meaningful work I could possibly do." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars through the dome overhead. Those stars no longer represented vast, empty distances, but connections between worlds and civilizations that were finally learning to work together. "Marcus," Zara Lynn said eventually, "I need to tell you something. The Zephyrian Council has offered me a position as ambassador to the new Galactic Cooperation Council. It would mean leaving our research partnership." Marcus felt a pang of disappointment, though he tried not to show it. "That's a tremendous honor. You'd be perfect for that role. I haven't accepted yet. The research we're doing is important, and I don't want to abandon our projects just as they're showing real promise." "Zara Lynn, this is exactly the kind of opportunity you should take. You've proven that interspecies cooperation works on a scientific level. Now you could help prove it works on a diplomatic level too. And what about our partnership?" Marcus smiled. "Our partnership isn't going anywhere. We'll just be working on different aspects of the same goal. Besides, having you in a position of diplomatic influence could be incredibly valuable for future research projects." Zara Lynn looked relieved. "I was hoping you would see it that way. But I will miss our daily collaboration. We'll still be collaborating, just on a larger scale. And with quantum communication, we can stay in touch instantly no matter where in the galaxy our work takes us." The next morning brought a flurry of new opportunities and challenges. The success of the Galactic Cooperation Accord had generated requests for similar collaborative projects from across the galaxy. Species that had remained isolated for centuries were suddenly interested in sharing their knowledge and resources. Marcus found himself appointed as Director of Interspecies Technological Development, with a mandate to establish similar research partnerships throughout the galaxy. It was exactly the kind of challenge he thrived on, but it would require him to travel extensively and work with species whose cultures and thought processes were completely alien to him. Zara Lynn's new role as galactic ambassador would keep her equally busy, coordinating diplomatic efforts and resolving conflicts between species with vastly different values and communication styles. As they prepared to embark on their new responsibilities, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that first awkward meeting in his apartment. The shy maintenance engineer and the formal alien noblewoman had become confident leaders in a galactic community that wouldn't have existed without their partnership. Ready for the next adventure? Zara Lynn asked as they reviewed their respective assignment briefings. Are we ever ready? We'll figure it out as we go, same as always. Together? Always together, even when we're apart. Their personal partnership might be evolving, but the foundation they had built together would continue to influence galactic civilization for generations to come. They had proven that cooperation between different species wasn't just possible, but incredibly powerful. They had shown that diversity of thought and approach led to better solutions than any single perspective could achieve. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that understanding and respect could overcome even the deepest divisions between peoples. As Marcus watched Zara Lynn pack her belongings for her journey to the new Galactic Council headquarters, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had never gotten the simple pet he had originally wanted, but he had gained something far more valuable, a partner who had helped him discover his own potential and achieve things he never could have imagined alone. The universe had indeed had the last laugh. Marcus Chun had asked for a companion animal and received instead a brilliant alien scientist who became his closest friend and collaborator. Together, they had changed the galaxy, and they were just getting started. 3 months later, Marcus received his first assignment as director, establishing a research partnership with the mysterious Void Singers, a species that communicated through quantum harmonics and had never before interacted with other civilizations. It would require developing entirely new approaches to communication and collaboration. As his ship prepared to depart for the edge of known space, Marcus's communication array chimed with an incoming message from Zara Lynn, transmitted instantly across the vast distances between them. Marcus, her image appeared in his cabin. I just wanted to wish you luck on your mission to the Void Singers. I'm confident you'll find a way to bridge the communication gap, just as you did with me. Any advice for dealing with beings who communicate through quantum songs? Listen carefully, remain patient, and remember that every species has something valuable to contribute. The Void Singers wouldn't have developed quantum harmonic communication if they didn't have unique insights into the fundamental nature of reality. Speaking of contributions, how are things at the council? Zara Lynn's expression brightened. Challenging but promising. We've successfully mediated 3 territorial disputes this month, and the Crystalline Consortium has agreed to share their planetary engineering techniques with younger species. Your example of human-Zephyrian cooperation continues to inspire others. Our example, Marcus corrected. None of this would have happened without both of us. True. Partners, regardless of the distance between us. Partners, Marcus agreed. Now I should go prepare for first contact with beings who sing in mathematical equations. Good hunting, Marcus. I know you'll make us proud. As the transmission ended and his ship jumped to hyperspace, Marcus smiled at the irony of his situation. He had started this journey wanting nothing more than a quiet pet for company. Instead, he had found his life's work and his closest friend, helping to build a galactic civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. The universe, it seemed, had given him exactly what he needed, even if it wasn't what he thought he wanted. And for that, he would always be grateful. The story of Marcus Chun and Zara Lynn had become legend throughout the galaxy, inspiring countless others to look beyond the barriers of species and culture to find common ground. Their partnership proved that the greatest achievements came not from working alone, but from combining different perspectives and strengths toward shared goals. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, 2 former enemies continued their work as partners and friends, building bridges between civilizations and proving that cooperation was always stronger than conflict.